Nkuhuma walked from. She's walked away from these lions south down this road. I'm so torn as to which way to go look for her. It's sort of guesswork, and I really think there's a chance she might be heading back towards those cubs. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to go and do a stakeout of the southern boundary. And who knows, you know, she might be bringing them back towards or back into Djuma. They are old enough that she will start taking them over the next few days and weeks. She will start bringing them back with her towards a kill. But yes, porcupines, there are certain leopards that specialize in them. Lions generally give them a wide berth, and it's usually the young male lions that are not stupid enough, but curious enough to tangle with porcupines. And I have seen them on the odd occasion doing that. It can be quite almost entertaining to watch their trepidation in terms of approaching an animal like a porcupine. And that, of course, is where the local story of the warthog's ugliness comes in. Apparently, according to local legend, the warthog used to be one of the most beautiful creatures in the land. He was so beautiful that he became very, very vain and used to go and boast regularly about his good looks. And the one day he left his burrow to go out and about, and a very tired porcupine had a long night foraging and decided to crawl into the warthog's burrow and settle down there. And the warthog went about his daily business and found the lion and started boasting about how much more beautiful he was than the lion. The lion lost his temper and chased the warthog back towards his burrow, and he raced in without realizing that porcupine was down there. And he found himself with a face full of porcupine quills, and from that day on was scarred and ugly. That's the local legend about the porcupine and the warthog. An African hoopoe. They are such gorgeous birds. Those long probing beaks, you can really instantly get an idea of the way in which a bird functions just by looking at its beak. And that long, thin shape is a prober. Everything from hardy-dar ibises to sandpipers, digging through the wet mud, to our little hoopoe here that walks about the ground and tests the earth with the sensitive nerve cells at the end of his beak, searching for any sounds and movement. If he goes, there was actually a pair of them there, didn't see that. Just while I'm here, grab a hold of a grass inflorescence to show you. It's my favorite species of grass. Ooh, I am very much still attached to the vehicle. This is Natal red top grass, and it hasn't quite acquired the bright red color that it gets when it's ripe. But it is absolutely I think it's the most beautiful grass species that we get out here. Very, very soft seeds. Natal red top. There's also a false red top grass, which looks very, very similar. But you can start to see, maybe you can, maybe you can't, start to see just the beginnings of the red on the seeds. Maybe if I turn it that way, you might be able to see better. Perfect. Thank you, Jean-Ray. And it goes an almost pinkish red color, the color of a sunrise almost. I could describe it like that. Has been used as essentially by stripping these, can be used as a sort of a filling or a stuffing for something like a pillow, if you gather enough of it. And it does grow in very, very large quantities. It's also a very resilient grass. So you find it a lot along the sides of roads. Roads are a harsh environment for grass species, which is why you usually find what has in the past been termed pioneer species, sort of the science behind grass and our understanding of grass is changing, so that name no longer fully applies, but it does describe quite well the resilient grass species, the way that they grow. So initially, in any sort of start to an environment, when you've got just, let's say you start from scratch with just the soil, you get the pioneer species, things like the red top grass, the carrot spike seed grass, turpentine grass. All of these grass layers are very, very tough and hardy, and they grow very easily with minimal resources. And what they do is they sort of set the scene for the rest of the grasses to establish themselves, because they improve the nutrients within the soil. They also act as a stabilizer for the soil so that it doesn't wash away. And thus they lay the foundations for the next set of grass species and the next set, until you get a really nice and healthy variety of grass species that are both nutritious and palatable for the animals. And from there, that will determine which animals you see. It will determine which herbivores you see. It will determine which predators you see in an area. It's one of my favorite things in the way that we understand, and the way that our understanding is constantly growing, of the way in which this all ties together, these sorts of connections. Funnily enough, I far prefer grass to flowers. I don't know what it is. I like flowers. I think they can be very interesting. But for me personally, I find far more fascination in grass and trees than I do in flowers. It's one of the things that we've all got our own little interests and specialities. I've just been loving watching the way that the grass in quarantine is making all of the animals sneeze as well. Going to wave hello to James, who is looking at some termites before I go and stake out the southern boundary. I can't even see James. He's disappeared. All right, well, I think what we'll do is we'll send you across, and let's find out why James is off the vehicle and what he's up to.
That's Brian telling me that we're live, everybody. It wasn't, in fact, a ground hornbill standing behind you. I've come to this particular tree because it's quite interesting. It's been covered in termites. Now, I'm going to put the microphone to the soil here, and I'll see if you can hear them going. They make a sort of alarm-calling rattle. Obviously not now. No, there, you may have heard that. Anyway, what is interesting that yesterday I saw a similar sort of thing around the clearings here, and it seems to be happening to a lot of the trees around the clearing. And I said I didn't think that these were the fungus-growing termites, Macrotermes natalensis, that make the big mounds. But these ones very clearly come from this mound, and they're building their mound up into the tree. Now, I'm not really sure why, so what I'm going to do is break off a little piece over here and find out what they are eating. And what you find is that they are eating into the bark. There's no question that that's what they're doing. Whether they will affect the wood of the tree, I'm not sure. I'd say it was unlikely because a lot of these trees are termite resistant, and I think the apple leaf tree is in fact one such tree. But why they've suddenly started covering all the trees here on quarantine clearings, I don't know. Normally they only eat dead and decaying plant matter and dead wood, but this is definitely a very living tree, and I'll be fascinated to know what happens to this tree as a result of this. Remember, a lot of trees, of course, grow out of termite mounds, and we're often asked what comes first, the termite mound or the tree. And almost always, I've said it's the termite mound that comes first, and the tree grows out of it because the seeds have been dragged in there by termites or some other animal, and the nutritious soil then results in the tree growing out of the sort of fertile ground that they have found. But in this case, perhaps it's an indication that that isn't the case, although I've never seen I can't remember seeing an apple leaf tree growing out of a termite mound. But all over quarantine clearings this is happening. It's happening to the apple leaves and it's happening to the silver cluster leaf trees. And so that's quite interesting. It's not happening to the combretum or bush willow trees, and it doesn't seem to be happening to the marulas either. So that's quite an interesting little side bit of the vegetation and interactions with some of the termites here. We did leave the lions, as is clear, because I wouldn't have been looking at a tree that close to the lions on foot. But we will go back there sometime during the course of the day. There's a piece of bark. I'm not sure why I brought that back in. All right, on we go. Let's see what else we can find. Come on, Wendy. There we go. You see this butterfly, Brian? It's called a blue pansy, if I'm not much mistaken. Beautiful picture there. While we look at that, I'll try and find it in the book. Donna, you want to know about fire ants, and do we get them here? You say you get them in South America, in South Carolina, and they leave a horrible welt when they bite you. Donna, we don't get fire ants here, but we get equivalent ants that do bite. Red ants will give you a nasty bite, but they don't tend to leave any welts. So they're not quite as nasty as the fire ants that you get in the Americas. I know that there's some particularly nasty ants that occur in the Americas, and the fire ant is but one of them. It is indeed a blue pansy. Brian, we can have a look at it in the book. This is a deeply aged book my mother gave me when I became a guide for the first time. And it was scoffed at because it's got everything in it. It's got insects and birds and trees and flowers and fungus and all sorts of things. And so that means that it is necessarily low on detail, but it's astonishing how many of the things that we find out here are in this book. There's the blue pansy, and its very close relation, the yellow pansy, is also found around here quite a lot, especially with the new flushes of wild flowers that we have out here. There've been many, many new butterflies. Beautiful. They don't often sit like that, do they, Brian? No. Normally you have to track them, and then people become nauseous while they're watching.
Yeah.
And of course, those blue spots on the butterfly are a really nice kind of example of an eye spot. And we think that a lot of the insects have got these eye spots on the backs of their wings so that they look like they're actually a large face belonging to a much bigger animal, which might then put off predators. There's an ant walking in the background there, a few of them, just going about their business, probably raiding a termite mound, stealing some babies. I must say, I do miss the bushwalk, and I look forward to the day when our camera comes back and we're able to do bushwalk again. Beautiful. Well done, Brian. Very nice butterfly sighting there, Tom. Congratulations. Right, on we go. Come on, Wendy. There we go. Now, the pansy jigger is coming back today. Now, for those of you who are new viewers, I know it might seem odd to name the vehicles, but we have named them. This is Wendy. Wendy is a recalcitrant old bag. Jigger is so recalcitrant that she was sent away for some time to look after herself at the hospital. And then Rusty, of course, as we know, is the newest Land Rover that we have here. It's still well in excess of 10 years old, which for a Land Rover years are a bit like dog years, probably even shorter. So 10 years for Land Rover is like 100 human years. And Natasha, you want to know how we come up with the names of these vehicles. I keep forgetting, but Rusty, VM came up with Rusty because as soon as we bought Rusty, and Rusty arrived looking spanky new, and the first thing we did was to take off the water cap to check, the water level, and the water was bright red on account of the rust that was coming, basically filtering through every piece of her. So that's how she got the name Rusty. Wendy, you see, one of our long-time viewers will tell you this probably. Do you remember how Wendy got her name? Here we go.
She's named Wendy because the previous owner had named it Wendy.
Right. The previous owner named this car Wendy, and that's why she is called Wendy. And Jigger?
Jigger was named along with the Gunda.
Oh.
Original.
Oh. So,
also because it was so on the road.
Right, okay. So to Jiga, I know we spell it J-I-G-G-A, which is incorrect. It's a Zulu word, Jiga, means to turn around. Gujiga, to turn. And that's where Jigger gets her name, because if you drive Jigger in a straight line and hold the steering wheel, you will find yourself listing to starboard or listing to port, depending on what the vehicle feels at the time. And that's why she's called Jigger. And the original one apparently was called Ganda, and that's probably from the Zulu word for tractor, Iganda Ganda, an onomatopoeic word. And I think it's a lovely word, and of course a Land Rover often sounds like a tractor. Now, they don't make these Land Rover Defenders anymore. They stopped making them last year. I'm sure it's a fairly large marketing campaign. I'm pretty sure they'll make a new one, probably within the next 12 months or so. A new one will be released. But these ones were basically, the reason we have such old ones here is that these are probably the last ones that were semi-fixable in the bush. All of the new ones, of course, you've got to have a fairly sophisticated computer system to fix. This one, you do have to have one if you want to truly fix them, but you can do some kind of bush mechanics on them. But we used to have an old V8 where we used to do the game drives down at Londolozi and up north in the Timbavati, and that old V8 was a very simple engine that could be fixed in the bush, and so that's why we used them. These days, however, fancy new diesels and engines, really nice quiet diesels, but have to be fixed by highly competent mechanics with computer systems. That's why we've got these old things, because I'm sure sometimes you must wonder why on earth it is that we struggle through life with aging vehicles. But that's why. I think Land Rovers have, so many cars have become much like athletic clothing. They're more statements than they are sort of statements of usage. And you can actually find places. Got a 4x4 that you take your kids to school in, you can find people who will put mud on your car for money to show that you haven't just bought the vehicle to drive around the city and the tar roads there. Right, we're going to go back to the lions. We'll have a look there, and while we do that, let's go and see what Jamie's can see.
Trundling along on the back of Rusty, we're making our way towards the southern boundary. Just working on a hunch here. I'm really hoping it pays off, that Karula is on her way, either back to the cubs or, you never know, coming to fetch the cubs. I know that we're all so incredibly excited to catch our first glimpses of them. I've only seen them once, and it was a very, very brief sighting when she was denning on Gowrie Main, our southern boundary, in a main road. And we've got so much to look forward to over the next few weeks. Let's see if she hasn't decided to adopt her usual route. The only thing that might actually prevent her, if she does have a kill somewhere in that drainage line, the one thing that might prevent her from bringing the cubs back today, apart from that they're still quite young, is the presence of the lions. The fact that the lions are so close might make her decide otherwise. I'm not going to see what this drongo's doing. He was fluttering about. He's on the ground there. He was fluttering about on the ground. He's now back up and flown away. Looks as though he was trying to hunt termites. I know that James was busy chatting a bit about the termites in the area. And because it's nice and cool and cloudy, there might still be some out and about and on the menu for a fork-tailed drongo. The difficulty with tracking in this area where we are at the moment is it's sort of this treehouse area, but there's a whole load of different pans, water holes, that the buffalo are currently inhabiting, and it's made tracking and walking in this block exceptionally difficult because the buffalo are just all over the show, and it's like playing Dodge the Duggar Boy. It's pans like this one that they are. We haven't got any at the moment. Oh my word. We have got such a fly accompaniment around my box with all of the books. I don't know if you can see them buzzing about. There are hundreds of them. Chandra, are you bringing the flies or am I bringing the flies? There are not millions, that might be a slight exaggeration, but there really are hundreds of them all around the bonnet, flying about our heads. It's interesting. These are very, very tiny, very young flies. And I have noticed a general increase, obviously due to the rain and the water. It's brought the flies out. I have noticed an increase in general, but this is the worst I've seen it. Interesting question from Beer about why it is that flies seem to bother the herbivore animals more than they do the carnivores. The carnivores definitely, Beer, the carnivores definitely have a problem with flies as well, but you raise a very valid point. It's particularly buffalo that they seem to spend a considerable period of time moving about over the carnivores, and I'm not entirely sure what it is that's. Perhaps the dung of the herbivores is more attractive. Ouch, there's a fly biting my ankle. And avoid all of the corrugations on the road and look for tracks at the same time. But maybe it's the buffalo dung that is more attractive. Perhaps it is the They obviously followed through from Arathusa. Hold on. Some of those tracks look a little bit too tiny for lion tracks. Not lion tracks at all. Male leopard tracks. Fairly fresh male leopard tracks. They have been driven over. This must be Tingana. No sign of Tundi. That's very interesting. Let's see if we can't work out where they've gone and if they've gone on to Djuma or if they've carried on along this road. Male leopard tracks. Those were a surprise. I was looking for female leopard tracks. Now, the last time we saw Tingana, he was occupied with his lady friend Tundi, Karuna's older daughter. So they have been driven over, so there's a possibility she is still with him. Now when we saw them, just judging by the amount of, maybe violence is perhaps the wrong word, but certainly aggression shown within their mating, it suggested that they were only maybe a day or two into that. And it could be quite a short mating period. It could be 4 days. It could go up to 6 days that they spend together when leopards are mating. When was that? That was 2 days ago that we saw them. So it would be about the right time for Tingana to move off on his own. I can't see them anymore. He's gone off somewhere. It looked, the last direction, it looked as though he was going off towards, across our southern boundary. And this is what I was talking about when I said tracking in this block is difficult. Oh, hello, boy. It's the one with the shoulder wound. We've seen this buffalo. This is actually a different injury. This looks fresher. There's obviously 2 buffalo with shoulder wounds like this. Ooh. See how skittish he is. I wonder if that was freshly inflicted, but therein lies the problem. Those birds sitting on his back, the oxpeckers, they are going to continue to worry at and keep that wound open. And I think you saw this buffalo with Brent a little while ago. Oh, look at his mouth full of grass. It looks yummy. But the oxpeckers, whilst they do feed on ticks, they also make a meal of picking at a buffalo's injury. Oh, that's an injury that might have in the past been inflicted by lions. Let's find out if James has returned to them.
Hello everybody, we've just come back to the lions and we were following some impala as they walked slowly towards here, deeply suspicious. It was two ewes and a lamb, 2 lambs, sorry, straight towards these lionesses, but the wind blew straight over the top of the cats and they knew something was up. Now they're alarm calling. I think the lionesses is actually stalked to the edge of the thicket and were thinking about pushing home some kind of attack, but then they were spotted. Let's just wait and see where they go now. And they're actually being relatively active. I don't want to move just yet. I just want to see where they go. Here comes another one. There we go. The bush is really in the wrong place, isn't it, Brian? There we go, they're moving now. Hello, nature is beautiful. You've asked a very nice question, and it's a nice question because it opens up topics of discussion. And you want to know, do they ever hunt wildebeest? Because normally you only ever see them stalking antelope. Well, strictly speaking, a wildebeest would be a kind of antelope because it's part of the same family. But I know what you mean. You mean normally you see them stalking things like impala. Nature is beautiful. Actually, this pride kind of specializes in buffalo usually. And so the question of them, we know what they specialize in, comes up. And lion prides of various areas will specialize in different kinds of animals. And what you find, they are now stalking something. 2 of them have gone down the other side there. I'm just going to put our noses in here. So yes, this pride does specialize largely in buffalo, and what that means, they are definitely on a bit of a stalk here. What that means is that they don't generally go for wildebeest. They will eat wildebeest if they can, especially young ones, but you're right, we don't often see them stalking wildebeest. Often buffalo. I think often they eat impala during the night time and we don't even notice because we're not around, so we don't see them eating those impala. I don't know what they're going for here or what's come down towards the water. These two are not particularly excited, but they are watching. So we've got the two here. There's two off, well, I mean, there are three off to the where we can't see them, but there's one coming behind underneath that dead tree, one further behind her, and then the other one's gone towards the dam from where that lioness you're looking at has gone. There she is. Well spotted, Brian. There might be a buffalo coming down to the water. Because the buffalo, of course, as the heat starts to build, will come and spend some time at the water. It's not hot at all. I mean, it's still probably only about 23 or 4 degrees Celsius, which is 75-ish Fahrenheit. 73, 72, 75, somewhere around there. Now the pride's kind of split up. They definitely saw something going down towards the water there. I don't know what it was. Let's just go and sneak forward and have a look. Oh, let's quickly go across to Jamie. She's got some of the most entertaining animals that you'll ever find.
Oh, they've just disappeared, unfortunately. This is the first time I've ever seen baboons on our live safaris, and they have dashed into that block away from us. They're definitely not relaxed baboons at all. We hardly ever seen them, or at least in the last few months we've hardly seen them. I'll try and get you another view. Unfortunately, I think they've gone. I think they're running away. Jean-Dre actually spotted them and got them. Oh yes. Backwards a bit, you think? I don't want him to run away. How's your view from there? He's about to go. There we go. Look at that. A brief but awesome view. Strangely enough, I never thought I'd say this, but that's one of the rarest animal sightings I've had on Drive. And I'm laughing because as a South African, you don't think of baboons as rare at all. Let's try for one more view. I know that apparently some of the viewers have been watching for many years have told me that they used to regularly see a group of baboons known as the Gowrie Gang on the live drives. But we've actually got to the point where we've tried tracking baboon troops before in order to put them on camera for you. They are highly entertaining animals. They haven't made a sound either. Usually when you've got a baboon troop, you hear this constant bow, bow. Communication to each other, sometimes a little bit of inter-troop discipline from the males. The baboons are fascinating. They have a social structure that's known as oligarchy, which means that they're dominated by, rather than having one male or a set of related males, it's a combination of a couple of different males, big males, that are not necessarily related to each other, but retain control and protect the troop from threats. And a big male baboon could take on a leopard quite easily and win. They've been known to kill leopards before. They weigh far more than I do, a large male baboon, with canines larger than those of a leopard. So they can be seriously fearsome animals. And I think, unfortunately, they have disappeared off into this very dense block. And the one thing that we've noticed since the rains, of course, is that our view into the blocks has been drastically reduced. I'm going to try and loop them. I'm going to try and get around to where I think they might pop out, but I have a feeling that they're going to stop once they're away from the road and settle down in there.
Ugh. I must say her fellow Pride members have not done her a great service there. They could easily have removed them. That really is pretty grim. And now they're stalking each other. This is quite fun. They just can't help themselves. Cats sneak forward. You see the way she put her head down there, in between her shoulders, sunk her shoulders down, which is typical stalking behavior. There we go. Not that the other lioness didn't know precisely what was going on. It's still quite nice to see. Maybe she's going to ask one of her pride mates here to take those disgusting grey ticks off the underside of her eyes. Now, of course, a tick to a domestic animal often means biliary or some other kind of fairly nasty disease. But to the animals out here, they're often used to any of the parasites and diseases that could be transferred by ticks. And so, while that does look pretty disgusting, I don't think you're going to find that it affects that lioness's life appreciably at all. There are more flies this year than I think I've experienced in the previous 39 of my existence on planet Earth. They hide on these bushes, and as you drive past, they kind of leap onto the vehicle and then into your ears and your nose and your eyes. And the only way to get rid of them is to drive at an astonishingly dangerous speed down the road, and eventually they kind of fall off. But you've got to keep going, because if you stop suddenly, they catch up with you. They're relentless. And they're looking for any bits of salt, any bits of nutrition that they can get. So if there's a wound on the lion, that's where the fly is going to be. And there are a number of wounds on these lions. You can see one there, and that is just covered in flies. And they will be laying their eggs in that. They will be laying their maggots. And if they hatch, it's not always a bad thing. The maggots will eat away any rotting material. But I mean, that is fairly vile. Now, Dave or Gabe, I couldn't quite catch it. Gabe, an interesting one that I think does require some explanation in terms of the evolutionary history of lions. So you want to know why it is that they don't live with the males, and because you thought that they lived in unison. Gabe, that kind of notion of lions living in a pride that consists of females and then a male with them, or two males with them, is born of stories such as The Lion King, which, while it was a wonderful story, was a bearer of so much biological mistruth that it has done incredible harm, or it has provided endless topics of discussion for safari guides around the continent. So, Gabe, lions don't live together for a number of reasons. First of all, remember, when you look at an evolutionary, I could give you the very basic answer, which is just to say that, well, the role of a male lion is to maintain a territory in which a few female territories will exist. So in this particular case, we have the Birmingham boys, 5 young males, who maintain a territory in which there are probably 3 prides. The pride on Mala Mala, the Styx pride, and the Nkuhuma pride. Now, they maintain the territory, and within their big territory, the 3 prides will maintain an exclusive territory themselves. And the point of that is that they then protect the area from other males, and the females then in turn kind of, if you like, they do sort of provide food for the males in some respects. If the males happen to be around when these females kill, then they will come in and steal the food away from the females. It's not so much that the females choose to hunt for the males. In fact, that is never the case. But the question is, why is that the case? Why is that most advantageous? Remember, that evolution acts on a species. Well, it initially acts on individuals, but it will tend to act on a species. Now, what that means is that although it might seem as if it would be better for this pride to have a male with them all the time, simply because he does provide a certain amount of protection, for the species, it doesn't really work like that. So there is an evolutionary advantage to the males being away. The evolutionary advantage is that they are patrolling purely for other males, which is a good thing. They are not stealing as much food from these females as they might if they lived with the pride. Remember, males, they can hunt, but they are actually the best scavengers that we have out here. So they probably scavenge more than any other predator that we have out here. They'll scavenge from their own kind and from anything else that they happen to find. And so it's actually more advantageous for the prides to be without the males unless they're mating. So the male's role in the species is to look after the territory, make sure that other males don't come in and kill their own cubs. And that's just basically how it's sort of fallen to lion society to survive. And that seems to work very well for them. As I said earlier, they were at one stage the most widely spread land mammal on Earth. Very nice question. Thank you, Gabe. Ooh, and Anne, as we were just sort of on the same topic, you say now that we know they don't live together, do the females mark territory? Yes, fastidiously. They maintain very exclusive territories from the other females. And so, like I said, there will be probably 2 or 3 female territories within the larger male territory. So the Nkuhumas have got an area here that encompasses Djuma and Torchwood. South of us, the Styx Pride will occupy an area around Chitwa, Cheetah Plains into the northern sections of Mala Mala. And south of them, there is another pride. I think that the Birmingham boys are dominating at the moment. So very nice questions there. Thank you, Gabe, and thank you, Annie. Let's head across to Jamie. She's got a pig.
Unfortunately, no sign of our baboons. However, we have found something else for you. A warthog with an itchy face. It's okay, boy. You can continue your scratch. Branch is the perfect shape to act as a scratching tool. It's a very young male. You know it's a male because he's got 4 warts on his face, 2 near his eyes and then 2 near his nose. Tell him as such, and he's very, very young. Those tusks just starting to peep through. Puts him at about 6-7 months old. So still in the company of Mom, who is a bit more skittish. She is here. Oopsie daisies. Bye-bye. Gone. Warthog on her way. As our warthogs dash away, we sometimes see certain groups of warthogs. We know that some are more skittish than others. And I know that the ones around this Twin Dams area are exceptionally uncomfortable with vehicles. We did have a female warthog that we watched for a considerable period of time. She got very, very skinny until she eventually died. We don't know what was wrong with her, but one of our feelings was that the drought and the lack of good food exacerbated some kind of pre-existing condition, maybe tuberculosis, maybe some kind of virus. Whatever it was, the drought actually made it worse to the point that she eventually died from the illness. But Maurice was wondering, have the warthogs in particular managed to recover their condition in time to manage to get through this dry season that lies ahead? And yes, they have. We did notice that it wasn't just her. A lot of the warthogs were looking particularly thin, far more thin than I've ever seen them at this time of year, and largely due to the fact that they were reliant on tubers and grass, and it just the amount of growth just wasn't providing for their nutritional needs. But yes, most of them have managed to recover. They seem to be fine. There's still one or two that I've noticed that are looking a little bit thin, bones sticking out a little bit. Warthogs, for some reason, are particularly sensitive to, first of all, loss in good quality food, but also drops and changes in temperature. And a lot of them, as soon as the temperature drops, if there's a sudden cold front, they tend to get pneumonia, as well as a number of other typical diseases. So they are very sensitive, but yes, Maurice, they have managed to recover very well. The same can actually be said for the buffalo. Hello, boy. I know you. Look at him. It's our gentleman with the blind white eye. Blind right white eye. Blind white right eye. There we go. Got there eventually. Hello, boy. Makes him a little bit more unsettled with vehicles. You can see how closely he's keeping an eye on us, quite literally in this case, as he munches away on his snack. And he is coated in glutinous mud. He's obviously spent his morning around one of the drying mud wallows. You can even see the lines in the back where he's walked underneath a tree, and they've scratched marks into his back. So clear. And that's one of the ways that you can actually track an animal like this. Where you've come across a mud wallow and you see that they've been wallowing, but they've since moved. And this applies for any animal that you want to find that's been wallowing in mud. You can follow their trail by looking for where the mud has been scraped underneath. Well, very often, first of all, it drips off, which makes a nice little breadcrumb trail. But then you can follow where they've rubbed up against plants as well. So a useful little tracking device. His tail, the end of his tail, is absolutely coated in this stuff. And all of the mud wallows in this area are acquiring. It's all right, boy. Don't worry, you can turn your back on us. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to sneak up on you. All of the mud wallows have started to acquire a sort of farmyard scent. It's the only way I can describe them. They smell like a cow shed. And that's due to the constant presence of these buffaloes wallowing in them. And I'm not sure what happened to his eye that caused that. Perhaps a collision in a fight with the male might have detached the retina, or it could just be a naturally occurring cataract. Excuse me, buffalo, I don't suppose you've seen a leopard? I guess not. He doesn't seem to be too talkative this morning. Oh, let's just let him cross the road. You see the way he startled there? He caught the smell of something. It isn't bothering him too much. He's going to stop and check, however. Surprisingly delicate walk for an animal of that size. I just wanted to let him get a little bit ahead of us. You can see he's just a little bit jumpy, mainly because he's blind in one eye. I thought I'd give him some space to move ahead so that we didn't scare him in any way. There is an elephant in there. I thought I saw an elephant. When I stopped for the buffalo, there's a couple of elephants in there. Here you go. We'll try and improve our view ever so slightly. It's the same block that we lost the baboons in, so it could be a bit tricky getting in here. But let's try. Let us try and get a different view. Although they might be moving towards us, actually. I'll drive into the open clearing a little bit and then see if they don't come to us. The thing about following elephants off-road is that as soon as you start moving over branches, with branches cracking and so on, what they will usually do, what they tend to do, is just move away from you and to constantly move away from you, which is obviously a situation we would like to avoid. And the best way of approaching an elephant sighting, and there is a very tiny calf here, is to just let them come to you. Hello, guys. There's such a tiny baby there. Hello, girls. And nature is beautiful. You've said that every time you attempt to go to bed, something else keeps popping up to keep you awake. The bush is full of these wonderful surprises. This is my favorite elephant. I know one shouldn't have favorites and all of that, but I know her fairly well. It's the elephant with the short trunk. She's missing the tip of her trunk, which is why there's such a tie. She's got her tiny baby with her, the little female calf. She disappeared for a few months and then came back with this little one in tow. We are so fortunate to have an environment that is teeming with all sorts of wonders, the like of which keeps nature is beautiful wide awake. They're having a bit of a dust bath now. Little one did a bit of a trip there. Now they are slowly moving towards the road. Rather than attempt to follow them, I'm just going to move a little bit ahead of them and just go around that way so that we can get a different view, although they've stopped now for a dust bath. Hello, Mommy. Can I come get a clear view of you, please? She's busy kicking the dirt to loosen it, and then, oh, she's even using her tusks now, and then using her trunk to scoop it up over her back. She's found a tuber as well. I always love watching her because it's incredible to watch the way that she has adapted to feed and to move about with that slight disability that she has. She's lost the tip of her trunk, so she doesn't have the prehensile tip, and she's lost about the first quarter of it. And that would most likely, it might have been due to a crocodile injury, but most likely it was due to a very unfortunate situation where she must have encountered a snare that had been placed there by desperate people looking to catch bushmeat. And unfortunately, she fell victim to it. It wouldn't have happened here, but as you know, this area is wide open to the Kruger National Park and other areas, so she might have moved through and encountered a snare like that there. Difficult to get you the best views in this thick block, and they seem to have stopped for the moment, but I'll try heading back towards the road and let them just come towards us. Have a bit of a view of her from here. And she's managed to, she's clearly was separated from her herd, whether it was due to the fact that she had to feed slower or whether it happened in the original injury, with the original injury itself. But she's always moved about on her own, and she's managed to create her own little herd through calves of her own. She's got an older female calf coming up to about, I would guess, at 10, 11. And she's got a roughly 6-year-old young male. And then this new tiny little girl. She's basically created her own family unit. An elephant's herd structure is so important in their life. It's wonderful to see that she's managed to establish her own little family. What's nice to see is something I've noticed with her in particular, and it's common with all elephant herds, but her oldest daughter takes a lot of responsibility for the calf. And that's very common. The young females practice their mothering skills on calves that are either younger siblings or younger cousins. But I've noticed particularly that this female feels comfortable with her older daughter caring for the youngster quite frequently. It's nice to get to witness and observe those types of dynamics within a family unit like this. And James, you've said that you will never tire of seeing elephants. Agreed, absolutely. Even if it is a view of them through the thick vegetation, through the trees, hidden away like this, I'm completely with you. There's always a sense of peace that comes with seeing these incredible animals. I was going to call them gentle giants, and I changed my mind just because that's not an entirely true description. They can be gentle, they can be angry, they can be grumpy. To describe them as a blanket gentle giant is almost, I wouldn't call it demeaning, but it doesn't really acknowledge the complexity of the way that these animals work. But I find that there's no mood that I'm in that an elephant sighting, a peaceful elephant sighting cannot fix. Or at least help. Let's go back onto the road. Hopefully they decide to come across in that direction. They are slowly moving. And we should be able to get a better view from there. Hopefully, while we're sitting here, the baboons might decide to pop in as well. They were heading in this general direction when we lost the view of them. And while we reposition to get a nice view of our elephants, Catherine, you were wondering on the subject of baboons, why they are so rare out here. And I think the drought has played a large role. They've spent a considerable period of time moving in the more riverine areas, so places where there are permanent rivers. Here we go. They'll come to us. We just have to wait for them. But Catherine, I think that's played a role. They've moved further towards the large flowing rivers like the Olifants, the Sabi River, the Sand River. There's more food and shelter for them there. And I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen them in this particular part of the Sabi Sands. I love watching baby elephants in their antics, especially when they're attempting to learn to use their trunks, as this one is. Getting swatted by Mom's tail there briefly. Baby elephants will start to eat solid food at around 6 months of age, which I would guess at this little one's age is roughly round about there, just judging by her size. Come on, Mummy, bring your beautiful family this way. Don't see the young female that was with her anymore. I only see the young male calf. John, you were wondering about our elephant's trunk as we watch her sort of manipulate the world around her and learn to, or work around having that kind of injury. John is watching all the way in Arkansas, and the answer to your question about whether or not it would affect her ability to trumpet is an interesting one, because of course the trunk acts as a resonating chamber. And no, she could still make those vocalizations. Most of them originate within the larynx of the elephant and are then, as I said, amplified. So it's not, the movies give off the impression that it's like blowing a trumpet, and that's not quite how it works with them. Now, while I patiently wait for our Ellies to come and join us out on the road, it seems as though James has also found some elephants, and he's got a lovely view.
It's very seldom one can say that one has done something better than Jamie Patterson, but apparently these elephants are better visible than the ones she is with. And that cow in front of us is a magnificent cow. She's fairly stocky, but she's also got some incredible ivory on her. It looks like bull's ivory. It looks like bull's tusks. They'll tell you that you can tell a bull from a cow by the angle at which the tusks come out of the skull. And hers bend forward in exactly the same manner that a bull's will. And there are a whole lot of youngsters here, and they were making a tremendous noise just now. That's how we found them. And I'm just going to see if we can't move a little bit and see if we can get a slightly better view of them. Just sort of beyond where they are. Oh, there's one of them lying down on the ground there. I'll try and get in close. But beyond where they are, it does get very thick, so we'll be in very much the same position that Jamie is if we don't get a good view from where we are now. Look at the little one on the floor there. That's awesome. Just having a snooze and a bit of a play. The two of them look to be the same age there. They always look so awkward, like they can't get up. But see, trying to reach across and touch his colleague or her colleague. Sweet, man. That's too wonderful. Let's just sneak around this termite mound here. I think we'll have to go this way around. Now, the little ones, I can just see them through there chasing each other around. Yeah, it is quite thick. We'll just stop here for a while. You can get a little bit of a view of them through there. Brian, I'll sneak a little bit forward. How's that? Not great. We'll just see if they don't move a bit. And they're just quietly browsing down. I suspect if you keep watching the Djuma Dam cam during the course of the day, you'll find that they'll come down there and have a drink a little bit later on. And if they come across those lions, the lions will be asked to move by large trumpeting and shouting. Let me move a bit forward again. Brian, there's also one off to starboard here that is hiding in the bushes. You can't even see it in there. I can just see bits of grey moving through the bush there. Is one going to come through here? Probably not from us. And yet almost completely invisible. That's about 20 meters. Okay, let's sneak forward a bit. Of course, I say that word sneak, but in Wendy, of course, when you start her, sneaking is not an option. Try and get in amongst here. They are actually moving away from the water, kind of into the thickets here. But we'll try and get another view. And they've made such a mess off-road here. They've pushed trees over everywhere, which means that it's quite difficult to maneuver. There's going to be a bit of a bump, everyone. Lift your coffee cups off your laps. And again. We'll just poke our noses up through here again. We don't want to make too much noise around them, because that will unsettle them and that won't be fair. Here we go. They're all kind of, it's quite a large herd, just grazing or browsing through here. And they're quite split up, which means they're pretty relaxed. If they were unrelaxed, they'd be sort of grouping together. This one is watching us quite carefully. The youngster. Probably almost 10. And not very nervous, just having a watch. Seeing what we're about. Now the trick, of course, with these elephants is to try and maintain a level of trust between us and them, a level of trust that never crosses the line where either they feel that they can approach and touch us, which has happened once or twice in the recent past, or where they feel they have to move away from us because they feel threatened. And it's a delicate balance to try and maintain, and often not a very easy one. You also don't want them to ever feel threatened to the point that they feel they must turn around and chase you away, because that is A, terrifying, and B, not very nice for the elephant. Let's understand that if an elephant takes the decision that it wants to chase you, it really is very upset indeed. Very peaceful, kind of, we've reached that time of the morning where everything starts to feel entirely peaceful. That expectation of the dawn, like when we found those lions, has dissipated. The lions have gone to sleep, and it's almost like the bush knows that the predators are now seeking refuge and respite, and everything just kind of relaxes. And the elephants too will go off into some thick bush fairly soon and have a bit of a snooze. The adults won't lie down, but the youngsters may well. Okay, Jamie's elephants are now performing better than my elephants, so let's go and have a look at them.
Patience is paying off in this particular respect, as our elephant's herd slowly strolls towards us. The young female in the lead, with a trunk full of grass and now dust. So entertaining to watch them like this. And there's always a special nature of a sighting where the elephants have chosen to come closer to you rather than approaching them. With all animals, they will be comfortable enough to walk right past the vehicle if they have chosen to do so. So if they have chosen to move in and close to you, they will come far closer than they would ever allow you to go if you approach them directly. This is the young female that I was talking about, the one that takes responsibility for her mother's calf. She's still very young, got many years ahead of her. And Cheryl, you were wondering, do elephants continue to grow until they die? And the answer is yes, they do. Most of their growing is done between the ages or from birth up until roughly the age of this young cow here, and a little bit older. So The majority of their growing, the most exponential growing, is from 0 to about 15. Before that starts to plateau off. And they will continue to grow, but very, very slowly in their later years. And of course, an elephant can live up to 60, if not older in some cases. That's a large time, and their tusks will continue to grow as well. Some elephants are more genetically programmed to have larger tusks than others, but they will have that continuous growth. Bulls in particular, their growth rate is faster than that of the females, as it is with most mammals, and they are, of course, capable of obtaining a much larger size. I had hoped that the female might move the guys in, or the baby across in our direction, but she's still very hidden behind a fallen knobthorn tree. Oh, somebody had an itchy ankle there. It's wonderful being in a sighting like this where you're close enough to hear the sound of an elephant's skin chafing against itself when they scratch or do anything like that. Just hear gentle crunching. That secretion, or the moisture on the side of her face, suggests that at some point she was maybe agitated. It's secretions from the temporal gland. Now, the general train of thought was that means an elephant that is stressed out. But recent research suggests that they can secrete like that to show any kind of heightened emotion. So it could be they could secrete while they're feeling playful, if they're happy about something, or if they're stressed. But you can usually read in an elephant's body language when they are stressed, and we just haven't quite got the momentum I wanted to be able to roll forward. And there's the perfect indicator, of course, in terms of elephant body language and interpreting it. That tail gently swishing backwards and forwards is a sign of a very, very relaxed elephant. It's when they hold their tails dead still that you know that they are focused on something. And when an elephant's tail goes stiff and is held out at 90 degrees to the body, that's when you know you're dealing with an animal that is feeling particularly stressed or frightened. It's amazing how delicately they move through vegetation like this. Hear the sound of her moving branches out of the way. We just don't quite have the slope. I wanted to just slightly roll forward, but we don't have the slope for it. Hello, big girl. Oops, sorry. Squeaky brakes. There's our view of the little one hiding behind Mom, behind a big sister and Mom. And a lovely, lovely way to finish off our sunrise safari. We didn't manage to find Karula again, but she will be an exciting prospect for the afternoon. We've got to spend some time in the company of giants. Thank you very much, Chandra, for all of your fantastic camera work as always, as well as to Rebecca and Kirsty in Final Control. And most importantly, thank you to all of our viewers out there that make this job such a special one to have. Have a fantastic day, wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch up with you for the Sunset Safari.
A very nice way to end off the drive, as Jamie says, if I could find the lions which have moved. We've come down to the water. There are buffalo, as I suspected there would be. Are the lions perhaps stalking them, or have they been chased off? Most embarrassing. Don't know, really. we'll have a look around here. We have at least had a great lion sighting today. I didn't see their tracks on the road. Brian, you don't see any lions, do you?
Nope.
This is astonishing. Anyway, there are the buffalo, and apparently there was nothing on the dam cam, and those buffalo are looking pretty chilled out. So I wonder if the lions haven't gone into the drainage line. I suspect that's exactly what they've done. So they're probably headed slightly further north of where we last saw them. So there are the buffalo. Now, the Nkuhuma pride does like to eat buffalo, but these big bulls will possibly be too much for them to bite off at the moment. They don't have any male help with them, but it's not impossible. The last buffaloes that they have been eating have generally been cows or youngsters. We'll just do a quick loop around here and see if we can't get a last glimpse. Otherwise, we will try and find them again this afternoon. Now, while I'm driving along here, please remember that Sam will be making his official debut. You were with him for his interview drives, but he's making his official debut. And he'll give you a large sort of proportion of his background. But he doesn't come from the guiding background that Brent and I and Scott came from, or that Jamie came from. He comes from a more academic background. And I think that is so valuable because it means his approach is going to be very different from ours. And I think that's wonderful. It adds some diversity to the team, but his approach will be slightly different, I'm sure, and it will as he goes along the journey of discovery with you through Djuma and through the development of his technique as a presenter. So I hope that you're going to enjoy the journey with him, because I think it will be a wonderful journey. Just had something. Rebecca, go again with that. Lions apparently heading towards the lodge. I don't know where, but they're probably in the drainage line down here. We'll have a quick look down here and just see if we can't spot them. So I think it'd be a good place for Sam to start this afternoon. A good flat lion sighting is an excellent introduction. That's how I began my little career here. I don't see them nowhere. Well, they're somewhere around here. Anyway, we will find them at some stage during the course of the afternoon, I hope. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments today. It's been wonderful chatting about the lions. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, of course, to Jamie and to Jandre and to Rebecca and Kirsty. And that's all I have to thank. We'll see you later this afternoon. Bye-bye.